Welcome back, Imagination Connoisseurs. I'm Lana, and this is Lana Yuen Reviews, exclusively on the Burnett Network. Today, we're looking at 1983's cult classic, The Hunger. I had never heard of this before until the Post-Geek Singularity recommended it to me. After taking a quick peek at the very over-the-top trailer, I was sold. It was like a mix between those 80s sensual music videos, vampire flicks, and one of those erotic thrillers you know I'm crazy about. And it has David Bowie. This movie was made for me. Also, if you do get a chance, you really should watch the trailer because it has one of the cheesiest narrator performances I have ever heard. Near the end of the trailer, he says words that just come flying off the screen like haunting, sensual, perverse.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing.
I mean, they just don't make trailers like that anymore. The Hunger stars Catherine Deneuve as the rich Countess Miriam Blaylock, David Bowie as her eternally loving husband John Blaylock, and Susan Sarandon as the smart and sexy researcher Sarah Roberts, who gets caught up in all this craziness. The screenplay is based off a 1981 novel by Whitley Strieber. It's directed by British-born filmmaker Tony Scott, who I didn't even realize until writing this review is the brother of another very famous filmmaker, Ridley Scott. Both were known for bringing their visual stylings from advertising to the movies in the mid-80s and have been criticized as being a bit style over substance. Michael Beck. Excuse me.
Awesome. Bingo.
However, even with all the negative feedback, he still directed some of the greatest iconic hits that we still know and love to this day. Everything from Beverly Hills Cop 2 to True Romance, Crimson Tide, and of course, Top Fucking Gun, baby. Let's face it, the man knows how to film stuff that I typically wouldn't find that interesting. Anything from F-16s to submarines to race cars, you name it, and he can make it look really fucking cool. He can even take a group of sweaty volleyball players at the beach bouncing along to some Kenny Loggins song and make it pretty damn entertaining. So, back to The Hunger. John Blaylock is the lover of an ancient vampire, Miriam, who has led John to believe that by consuming human blood, he too will be immortal. Their lives, and other parts of them, giggity, converge with that of Sarah Roberts, a researcher obsessed with unlocking the key to immortality. And thus begins a lusty, sensual love triangle between vampire, love slave, and mortal woman, also quickly turned love slave. So here we are again at your official spoiler warning, but don't worry, I keep it pretty light until the very end. And while it doesn't have the deepest of plots, it does have moments of brilliance and beauty that you should experience for yourself. And, hello, it's got David Bowie. And with that, let's see if this hunger is worth feeding. This is not your typical vampire flick. First, I was expecting David Bowie to be our leading man, since most vampire movies star male leads. The women are usually just there to be victims or be lusted over, which, you know, hey, you're not gonna get any complaints from me, but it is pretty par for the course. But what I didn't expect was for The Hunger to have such a unique and somewhat sad take on vampires and eternal life. And I thought I'd seen it all. Which is silly because I really have hardly seen anything. The movie starts off with us following around David Bowie's character, John. He spends his evenings going to goth clubs with his wife and luring back victims to their penthouse for killer after parties. Then he spends the rest of his week standing around watching TV, playing the cello, and peering out of windows contemplating his many life choices. Oh, and smoking. This man smokes so much in this movie that when he first notices that he's aging, I just racked it up to him having smoked every day for like 300 years. Smoking, a surprising addition to the list of things that can kill vampires. However, as John begins to age more quickly, you start to question his immortality. It all begins to unravel as John asks Miriam about the lovers that came before him. And when his health really plummets, you feel an incredible sadness for him as he realizes that this eternal life he was promised was just a terrible lie. It's one of my favorite things about the movie. I mean, Miriam is just so evil. After experiencing John's incredibly sad and twisted ending, the story does a bit of a switcheroo, and it took me completely by surprise. The focus is now shifted to Susan Sarandon's character, Sarah, who John had sought to help cure his condition, but sadly had also turned him away. It's at this point that the story starts to lose some of the great momentum it had been building up and pivots pretty starkly to a more traditional vampire tale, but with lesbians. Susan Sarandon gives a great performance here as the strong, curious, and competent researcher Sarah. She's a strong female lead, a very Ripley type who won't just take things lying down. Figuratively. Literally, she does a little bit. But she's not just some bimbo being seduced. She is more intelligent prey that won't be gotten easily. Miriam is hands down the queerest type of evil I have ever seen in a vampire. It's one thing to suck the life out of innocent living creatures, another to turn someone against their will, but to promise someone eternal life until death when you know that something way worse than death awaits them at the end, and then to hold that secret for centuries from the person that you've promised yourself to for eternity. It's unimaginable. Only a vampire as old as the pyramids could be so morally bereft. Another thing that I'm sure we can all agree on is this movie is gorgeous to look at. It's like watching a modern day black and white film noir, but filtered through shades of teal and blue. Every shot looks like it's by a window with the shades down, creating a strong graphic shadow over the actors' faces. This movie lives in the shadows, and it isn't afraid to have its performers act in them. Scott plays with silhouettes, reflections, and extreme close-ups that really add a layer of visual storytelling that few films even attempt these days. With most of the film playing out in Miriam's penthouse, the production team does a fantastic job keeping things looking interesting throughout. From the rich yet minimalist costuming of our leads to the flowing white curtains that are strung everywhere, it feels like at any moment, Meatloaf might walk into frame and start singing one of his love ballads with wind blowing through his hair. Cheesy, yes, but it really does add to the romantic atmosphere of the setting. I love it. Also, side note, if you're a vampire bringing prey back to your penthouse to slaughter on the regular, are white sheets strewn about everywhere really the smartest choice of home decor? Just a thought. So as much as I love David Bowie's role, he's really only in it for the first half of the film. And as much as I stan Susan Sarandon, truthfully, David Bowie's half was just better. His story arc is fantastic. I just wish it lasted longer. Maybe they could have, slowed down his aging just a tad. And, while he's off searching for answers, maybe that's when Miriam gets lonely and pursues Sarah. I don't know. I don't think it would serve the story better, but David Bowie is just that good. And having only ever seen him in The Labyrinth as a wee child, I just wanted more. And I do intend on seeing more of his films. There are more, right? While I found the first half unique and engaging, the second half went down an all too familiar path for me. Yes, having our primary old country vampire story shift to a new and naughty love story between two female leads was daring, especially in that time. But it's still Count Dracula seducing a love interest, and it all comes to a sad operatic ending. Another thing that bugged me was that the rules of this world are just so unclear. My understanding is that John and Miriam aren't real vampires, but they do share a lot of the same characteristics: eternal life, a thirst for human blood, and frequent trips to the underground goth club. Yet when we get to that climactic end with Sarah stabbing herself in the neck with her tiny knife necklace, she somehow dies after being turned? Wouldn't that do nothing if you were already a vampire? Or was she pretending to turn in order to kill herself? And how did she know that a single stab to the jugular would do it? That seems like good information for David Bowie.
Kill me, Miriam.
And what is with Miriam's fragile old lovers coming back to life to exact revenge out of nowhere? I'm willing to accept whatever half-ass proposal you give me because the makeup was beyond badass, but again, it just came out of nowhere. Did her sadness awaken them? Shouldn't they have turned to dust by now via rapid aging like it happened with the monkey? How could they open the boxes with their tiny frail arms? Do they just get up in the middle of the night to get a midnight snack and it was just a wrong place, wrong time situation? I don't know. And truthfully, I have zero workable theories for this one. And in that same vein, what the hell is with that ending? We see Miriam die by falling off the banister to her death, aging at lightning fast speed, and then we open on Sarah alive and living her best lesbian life in Upper New York. We then hear the screams of Miriam from an old coffin in Sarah's attic. I mean, huh? Did Miriam not die? Sarah also didn't die? Is Sarah now the new vampire queen? It just came so far out of left field, and up until now I had been watching this rather sensible plot, I was just so confused. So, like any responsible moviegoer, I took to the internet, and what I found was that awkward ending was actually an extra bit tacked on by the studio. They really thought that this new and certainly not improved ending would open some doors to sequels. I love vampire movies, and I find it harder and harder these days to find good ones that aren't just remakes of the stories we've already seen. But The Hunger is something different. While the second half of the film is not as exciting as the first half was fantastic. It's a bit like watching the first 10 minutes of Up, an absolute masterpiece, and then watching 80 minutes of a pretty decent children's movie. That being said, I still highly recommend you check this one out. Its slick production values, moody atmosphere, and chilling performances make this one of the better vampire films I've ever seen. So what do you think of The Hunger? What's a better segue I could have used in the intro? And do you have any other vampire movie suggestions for me? I'd love to get your thoughts in the comments below, or if you'd like to chat in between my reviews, check out my social links at lanayuen.com. And until next time, stay hungry. And with that, let's see if this vampire still sparkles. Let's see if this vampire flick is worth sinking your teeth into. So dot your I's and cross your crucifixes. Let's see if this movie has aged poorly or if it has the key to eternal entertainment. Oh yeah, we're still going. So get your garlic necklaces on because we're going to the club. Let's see if this film has what it stakes.